And welcome to God Symphony Live. Today is Tuesday, April the 26th. And tonight we are continuing our discussion of the dysfunctional family. We continue to pursue God's restoration and His help for us to take steps to remove any barriers to recovery that are a result of our family of origin. In this lesson, we will study more of the characteristics of a dysfunctional family. And as we better understand our family, we will better understand ourselves and our reactions. So let's dig in. Our theme scripture for tonight is when the king asked the woman, she told everything to him. So the king appointed an officer for her, saying, restore all that was hers and all the produce of the field from the day that she left the land, even until now. Second Kings 8 and 6. And I love that because that's what God says for us, that all will be restored. That was ours. And that sexual abuse will no longer have a hold and withhold from us what God has purposed for us. In our previous sessions, we discussed the first two characteristics of the dysfunctional family. Number one, needy family members receive an inappropriate proportion of the family's time, attention, and energy, so that members learn to be overly responsible toward needy people and irresponsible about themselves. And number two, a dysfunctional family promotes denial and secrecy. So tonight we start with number three. A dysfunctional family has either repressed emotions, explosive emotions, or both. A healthy family both permits and models how to express emotions. Children learn how to identify and deal with their feelings. But in a dysfunctional family, certain or all emotions are forbidden. Many families transmit messages that say, don't express your feelings, don't cry, don't get upset, don't get angry, don't betray the family. Don't ever tell outsiders about the family secrets. These messages, as well as ones more directly stated toward you, affect your recovery. You may have been told that you are a failure or shamed by any number of derogatory statements. All of these are characteristics of a family based in shame. You will be invited to focus on the issue of shame in detail in later sessions. But for now, we want you to evaluate how you learn to feel shame about your feelings and responses in your family. As a child, did you learn any of these beliefs? Name those that you identify with. Number one, good children honor their parents. Number two, my parents had their faults, but they loved me. Number three, if I say or think bad things about my family, I will betray them. Number four, if I say or think bad things about my family, I will feel ashamed. Well, look at it. The first two are positive and healthy, but the last two are sick rules that serve to maintain the secrecy in a dysfunctional family system. Survivors of sexual abuse are sometimes unable to express the feelings necessary for recovery because they learned in their family of origin that feelings were not acceptable. This is especially true if the feelings are negative and if the feelings concern a family member. Each family member sends us messages about ourselves. The person who sexually abuses you says, you're worthless, you're no good, and you're guilty. Sometimes parents send the same message, not by sexual abuse, but by their words and attitudes. Maybe a sister told you that you were stupid. Possibly you had a granddad who said you were special. a badly needed positive reinforcement. You can evaluate the messages that each person who supported and each person who abused gave you. Then you can make wise, godly, and informed choices. You can choose to reject these false messages. How do you feel when you talk about the abuse? Think about it. Think about what feelings arise when you talk about your experience with sexual abuse. Do you feel scared, disloyal, relief, shame, guilt, or possibly something else? Think about how you have responded to or compensated for the way your family expressed feelings. Listen to this. Bill was taught that good children honor their parents. He did not understand that one way to honor a relationship is to make it real by being honest when situations are painful and difficult. As a result, he was afraid to talk about his abuse. Negative thoughts were bad things in his family, so he felt guilty and shame filled for having normal thoughts and emotions. As you think about this, how would you like to respond now about how the feelings that come about when you talk about sexual abuse? But I love the fact that where we are now is not where we will be because of God. You will forget the shame of your youth. Isaiah 54:4. Isn't that awesome? Number four, a dysfunctional family does not teach effective living skills to the children. A healthy family provides an environment that allows children to grow according to their own developmental needs. Children learn to love themselves and others and to trust that the world can be a friendly place. A child needs a fairly consistent and stable environment. An example of the dysfunctional family is one that never stays the same. Some victims of sexual abuse report living in more than one family, perhaps first with mother and father, next with grandmother and grandfather. Cindy shares that in her childhood, she attended 19 different schools, including five during her high school years, and with several other family systems. She says, I lived with my mother, my grandmother, my mother and stepfathers, my sister's father, and with several other families. Each one presented different issues that I had to work through as a part of my recovery. I had to deal with emotional abuse, chaos, and the aftermath of my sexual abuse, all of which made me think that I was profoundly inadequate as a person since I was unable to control or alter what was happening. The lesson I learned from all of this was that I could do nothing about my life. No matter what I tried to change, it didn't work. No matter what I did to bring order, chaos always resulted. I could not make sense out of the chaos. I carried the outside shame of moving so many times and the inside shame of sexual abuse. When I left for school in the morning, I didn't know if things would be the same when I returned. Appropriate touch, a living skill. Building a healthy self image in a recovering sexual abuse victim requires daily reinforcement in terms that demonstrate that person's value. We all need positive statements and healthy physical contact. God created us to give and receive healthy physical love, such as hugging, holding hands, and kissing. Unfortunately, sometimes in a dysfunctional family, the only touches that we may have experienced were bad touches. The result is extremely confusing. If you want it to be held, but the only time you receive physical attention was during abuse, you may have felt guilty. This is a double tragedy. However, you can begin to understand that you are not wrong for having these basic human needs. God intended for you to have these needs, but for them to be met in a healthy manner. Think about it. What role did touch play in your family of origin? Now think about how you react when you are touched by someone now. Touch has to do with personal power and control. If you were touched when you didn't want to be and not touched when you did, you may have a difficult time accepting touch now. You may not even know what is appropriate or inappropriate touch. Survivors are often re victimized because they're not aware that they can say no to touch. Remember in the interview with Miss Jacqueline, how she talked about what parents we have to remember is when we say, go hug Uncle so and so, go hug, Aunt so and our children are hesitant, that we should respect that because a child has the right to decide if they want to hug or touch or be touched. That's what we have to remember. And a lot of times in our families, that's not something that was ever discussed, let alone something that was ever considered necessary for children. Number five, a dysfunctional family squeezes the members into rigid, inappropriate roles. Children in dysfunctional families develop survival roles. These roles are either assigned by the family or unconsciously chosen by the child. Some examples of survival roles include the scapegoat, usually blamed for family problems, the hero, works hard to bring respect to the family name, surrogate spouse, often takes the place of the emotionally absent spouse and becomes the child counselor for a troubled adult parent. The lost child never gets in the way or causes trouble because this family already has enough problems. A surrogate parent takes over responsibility of parenting task. And the clown avoids the pain by being the center of attention. In this list, think about and identify, see if you can identify the roles that would describe your behavior in your family. Your role may have changed over the years as the family changed. Think about what effect did your role or roles in the family have upon you and how you coped with sexual abuse. Is being able to identify your role, does that help? Do you feel sad, afraid, or lonely, guilty, ashamed, or angry now that you realize the role that you may have played in your family? MJ describes how her sister was assigned the role of surrogate mother. All my life, I would remember how my sister and I were best friends, how she was always there for me. I would remember how she cooked for me. She dressed me in the mornings for school. She loved me. MJ's sister was in the role of the parental child. Sometimes in situations like MJ's, the child develops a fantasy bond with the sibling that is the surrogate parent. I couldn't understand why now that we are adults, my sister never comes to see me. And I'm always the one who goes to her house. I am always the one who calls her on the phone. It took a long time, but I finally realized it was all make believe. This bonding was a way I had learned to cope in my loneliness as a child. My mother had made my sister take care of me. I realize now that she didn't want to. As my sister and I sat on the porch holding hands, I would fantasize that she loved me. This love, this relationship was only in my mind. It never existed. The reason she never called now was because she didn't want to. She never came to my house because she didn't want to. You may need to seek God's wisdom to become aware of fantasy bonding. I urge you to do so, for this knowledge can set you on the path to have real relationships with these relatives, even if they are not what you thought or even what you wanted. They will be authentic relationships that you can understand and predict. Your efforts may even lead to loving and intimate relationships if your relatives are willing to consider honestly all the factors affecting your former situation. Let's talk about it. When the right person hugs you, it's like medicine. I'm so grateful for those few people in my life who are good for my soul. I like that. This is an example of healthy touch, the living skill. Because it's true, when the right person hugs you, it's soothing, it's comforting, it's supportive, it's encouraging, it feels like love, and it makes you feel good. It makes you stand a little taller. It makes you feel like I can do this. I can survive when the right person. So I'm thankful. An example of the right person for me is my husband. When I'm having a difficult day or a challenging day, or I'm feeling kind of, oh, I don't know what's wrong, but I feel like crying, or I start thinking about things and it just begins to overwhelm me, I'll just go ask him for a hug. And when he hugs me, it feels like everything just melts away. There are times I'll ask him to hug me and I'll actually start crying. But even that, those tears are a release. And that hug was what I needed to get what was bottled up out and allow me to become free and to be free of that thing. So, healthy touch, good touch, this touch, when the right person hugs you, it's like medicine. I believe that's how God designed us to be. Okay. Dear God, we have come to this moment, oh God, because we know that in life there is caring and hostility, warmth and chill, freedom and burden, peace and anxiety. How we come to this moment because we know you, oh God, are here. You are wisdom and truth, hope and strength, healing and new life. From you flows all that we long for and need. Be with us now as we acknowledge our past, affirm our present, and envision our new future. Amen. All right. I will see you next week where we will discuss believing the truth. Take care.